It was tough, especially in high school, because when you don't know, when you're being bullied and you don't know why you're being bullied, and what's even worse is that you haven't a clue about what a comeback is. Like, it's confusing and it just hurts.
One of the key findings from our study is that people with Asperger's disorder and high-functioning autism are increasingly socially isolated as they move through school, and that social isolation is directly related to mental health problems as an adult.
I became a loner, ended up being in the library more than out in the playground because I just got bullied extremely hard, and so yeah, social interaction for me in school was not good at all.
Children with autism and Asperger's have a range of difficulties that will impact them in the school, in the classroom and in the way that they learn. Even when perhaps on a measure of intelligence they're scoring out as average, there are things that go on in the classroom that present particular difficulty to them across a whole range of areas. So for example, they may find it difficult to comprehend material at the same rate as other children. They may find it difficult to complete assignments and essays because they have difficulty with things like planning, organising themselves, having a structure to approaching things. They can have major handwriting difficulties, which slows down that whole process, and they're actually having to put a lot of effort and mental energy into handwriting and therefore not being able to kind of do some of the automatic processing that the other children are doing. So basically the classroom can be an exhausting environment for kids with autism. Even when they're perhaps giving some output, it's actually taking a lot of energy out of them. And then for many children with autism and Asperger's, when they go out in the playground, which should be their break time, their time to kind of wind down and regroup for the next learning session, they're actually going out into what's perhaps the most difficult part of the day for them. They're having to negotiate the playground with noises, with social experiences they can't manage, with perhaps being isolated by their peers, and they're then going back into the classroom with anxiety levels that are elevated rather than wound down, and then they're starting to go through that process of having to learn and attend in the classroom. So it can be really difficult for them in a typical school day.
We think it's critical that schools are much more aware of the social isolation and challenges, particularly bullying, that can occur typically from middle to late primary school, and that schools really ought to be looking at strategies that involve peer groups, the whole school, in promoting pro-social behaviour. And in that way, structured activities and structured social activities, peer networks, will really provide the social support that's needed to improve social and, as I've mentioned, emotional and well-being outcomes, because the social isolation won't be so prevalent.
The first thing I would suggest for people in the high school years is a safe haven, you could say. For me, it was the library. I found the library to be very good. When I was being bullied, I knew there was always a place where I could go, where I could read my books, I could play with my cards, and no one would make fun of me. The second thing I would say is that what kids in high school need is a social coach. Someone that can tell them what sarcasm is, when people are telling the truth or telling a lie. If I had that, I would have made my way out of certain very embarrassing situations. Yeah, that would definitely be a very good version of help. The third thing that I would suggest is a tutor, mainly because of bullying being such a big problem in schools today. Many kids are demotivated to try and improve who they are when it comes to educational purposes. So I would say a tutor would not only help them motivatingly, but it would also help them with learning all kinds of subjects. And the fourth thing is organisational skills. Going back to number 3, because of the motivation, they end up being cluttered all over the place.
Students with Asperger's syndrome have incredible knowledge and skills, and what you need to do is concentrate on their strengths and build on their strengths. By developing their in-depth knowledge and giving them responsibility to impart that knowledge to others is really important. Give them that responsibility and that respect.
When you actually step aside from disability and autism, those that succeed in the world, who make great gains, it's actually because they've developed their strengths and interests and taken that into a vocational or even into a prodigious level. So where people excel in society, it's related to their strengths and interests, and the same applies to those with Asperger's high functioning autism.